Thank you, Convener. Good morning, Cabinet Secretary and officials. I'm frankly really surprised that this has been put up on the Forestry Commission Scotland website before the committee was in a position to make its deliberations today. It may be a negative instrument, but it is coming to committee today, and it will then, you know, if we had concerns, which some of us have, to the point of one member wanting to annul, we're now in a position where it's already on the website. And I'd like to ask, firstly, why this has taken, it has only come to us on the day when, when we have to meet the EU deadline, and secondly, how far in the future is the infraction proceedings and the risk of fines? Because I understand there are phasings to that. And I do feel that this shows a disrespect for the committee and the Parliament, building on what Mark Ruskell said, and I'm quite concerned about it. So I wonder if you, Cabinet Secretary, or any officials could comment on this.
Well, you know, I'm grateful to have the opportunity to try to allay members' concerns, because, you know, plainly we mean absolutely no disrespect to this committee, and that's not something that I would tolerate. My understanding is because it is a negative instrument, it will be enforced unless it is annulled today. If it is annulled today as a result of the democratic procedures of this Parliament, then it will be annulled. It will be of no effect. And I will ensure that the website of this Forestry Commission is immediately, today, altered to that effect. The reason why, as I understand it, and I did discuss this briefly with members beforehand, it's on the website, is because at the moment it is the law in force simply because of the requirement today to comply with EU law. That requirement is in legal terms, Convener, discharged, if you see what I mean. You know, we have passed a law, we have met the deadline, and the Forestry Commission, because it is currently the law, unless annulled, are quite right to display a notice on the website of what the law is. It may only last half a day, or until the end of the session if members are so minded to annul, but the process is the correct legal one, and it is absolutely in no way a matter of discretion. It is a process that is correct legally to demonstrate that the Forestry Commission have immediately complied with and met the particular law about transposition of EU law into the domestic legal system. So it's purely a technicality. I'm grateful that Claudia Beamish has raised this, because it's a somewhat sort of arcane legal answer I've given, but that is because it is an arcane legal matter, and it is absolutely the correct position. I am advised that there was in fact no committee on the 9th of May, so this matter was put back to today, and today being the last day. And I obviously have no criticism of the committee in this regard, and the motion to annul, I think, was tabled on Friday. I don't know, I think Mr Brash is actually the expert in here, so maybe I'm chuntering on when he could provide a more succinct explanation. Mr Brash.
Okay. Thank you, Cabinet Secretary. No, basically we worked with our lawyers, and we have 28 days that we can lay the legislation, although Parliament, for negative legislation, although Parliament requires 40 days. We did do that. It had gone through, along with the other legislation we'll come to later, had gone through the Delegated Powers Law Reform Committee, and was therefore ready to come to the lead committee to further back. But when I was liaising with the clerks, I was told that unfortunately it can't be seen on the 9th, when it was perfectly ready to do that. It had gone through DPLRC in early April, so was available for the committee. But because of that meeting, they decided to bundle all these pieces of legislation together, some of which went through DPLRC quite a while ago, the electricity one, for instance. So I'm afraid we were in the hands of the committee when they could fit us into their schedule. But it was available to be seen.
That's correct. The committee didn't sit last week, and that has been a factor in it. But you can understand the concerns that are being expressed by members today around this. It's been good to get this issue aired on the record.
With respect, that doesn't answer my question about if it hadn't been put up till after the committee had heard it today, out of respect for the committee, how soon would it have been in terms of UK infraction process that we would have jeopardised our situation as your situation as Scottish Government, which I of course would have to take into account. Because I understand there are several phases before we'd get to that. So would it not have been more appropriate, or perhaps it might be something that could be more appropriate in the future, it's there now, but unless there's a motion to annul, to just put it up later in the day, as long as there wasn't a motion to annul. It just still, in my view, I want to push this point, seems a little bit ahead of things.
Well, it is the law now in accordance with the negative procedure. We need to, as a government, we must comply with the law, and we must do so immediately. There's just no question about that. Regarding the infraction process, it is a process, it's not an event. And Claudia Beamish is quite right that there are stages of infraction. And I mean, if this is important, I'm sure Mr. Brash can explain what those stages are. But I mean, plainly, from my point of view, as a government minister, I want to avoid any infraction, if I possibly can, and to take all prudent steps so to do. I think that the Forestry Commission were right to do what they did, which is to comply with the law. If it's altered, they will immediately comply with the law and make appropriate amendments to the website today, in the course of today, if that were to be the decision of this committee and this Parliament.
Right, well, Convener, I've got one other question, unless anyone wants to take up this point further. Thank you. It was just for clarity, Cabinet Secretary, about the UK FS scheme, which it's been highlighted to me, and this may or may not be correct, but I would seek clarity on this, that it doesn't have a statutory status, that is in the main voluntary, and that its status is open to question on private land. And I think it would be helpful just to have some clarity on those issues, because it may well be misinformation, but just for the record, that would be helpful.
Well, I think if I could pass to Mr. Callaghan, he can probably give you the authoritative answer, if that's permitted, Convener.
Yes, certainly. Yeah, the UKFS brings together a whole suite of guidelines and statutory requirements that exist in law relevant to forestry. So many aspects of it are actually statutory. They may not be specific forestry legislation. It could be to do with water or protected habitats, designated sites, things of that nature. So in terms of the forest manager, in one place he has all of the statutory requirements and the good practice guidance that we would expect them to comply with. But the real bite is that we have, it is in a sense almost statutory, because it is part of our Scottish Rural Development Programme. So the condition of providing grant aid is you must comply with the UK Forestry Standard, and that is pseudo-legal in that it is part of our approved programme with Europe, and that is enacted in legislation in Scotland. So in a roundabout way, the guidance becomes almost as of a legal standing.
Right, thank you, that's helpful.
Okay, thank you.